BHEL, M&M are some of the other gainers. Let's just focus on the metals pack for just a bit. As promised, we're getting you Ravi Uppal, MD and Group CEO at JSPL, live from Davos. Namrata caught up with him.
Here in Davos, the commodity downturn and the crash subsequently is being much talked about. But what is the impact on India and specific corporates? I've got Ravi Uppal of JindalSteel&Power with me. Good to have you, Ravi. This is the big question. Commodity prices are coming down. India is an import-dependent economy. This should be good for us, but it's not the case. Why?
Well, when it comes to commodities, I think India is pretty self-reliant. I don't think we need to import any kind of commodities, in particular things like steel and the other non-ferrous metals. We're pretty self-sufficient. And India's producer basically very competitive. But if someone from outside wants to resort to dumping and supply things at a price which are simply not sustainable, I think we really, as a country, need to think about it, how to protect our long-term interests.
So you think the government should put up artificial barriers or protection right now, some kind of tariffs in place, because China devaluing its yuan constantly is going to put a lot of pressure on Indian businesses like you to compete. You can't compete with the price of Chinese imports.
See, the measures that China is doing today are basically short-term. They want to just keep their industry going. They have built up a capacity which is simply not sustainable, 1.2 billion tons of steel, and they were earlier consuming about close to 800 million tons. Now suddenly their consumption has come down by 150 million tons, and that's the amount of steel they want to dump outside. They don't care about what the fair cost and the price of the steel is. Whereas we in India, where we have a long-term need of steel, produced in India, using our own iron ore, our own local materials, using our own local labor, I think is extremely important that we give the required protection to the Indian industry to serve the long-term interest of the country. US was built with the US steel. China built their own infrastructure using Chinese steel. Why should it be different in case of India?
So what kind of protectionist measures are you looking for?
Well, we think that the combination of things which can be done, one of them is that minimum import price should be fixed. Government can easily establish as to what is the fair price given our factor cost. That's one. Number two, that anyone wanting to bring steel into India, he must stick to our technical standards. So therefore, that's a quality order, we call it. Thankfully, government has already sort of brought in the quality order in the middle of December. It's under implementation. And then, of course, safeguard duty. I think some of these measures taken together will give us protection for the short term.
Okay, there is a tough time, though, right, for Indian industry. And I know you have stopped your plans for raising, you were going to look at increasing capacity, raising capital, and you have even taken a cut in salaries across your employees, 10%. So how difficult is the time? Because it's hard for people to grasp right now when people are saying that India is the only shining star in the BRICS.
Well, India is shining star depending on what you refer to. That we have done very well in some sectors like IT-enabled services, e-commerce. We've done well in some sectors like pharma. But there's some other sectors which are commodity linked. Whether you talk of, I mentioned to you about steel, non-ferrous metals. These are kind of sectors which are heavily stressed. Even earlier, power was under stress. I think, in the long term, these sectors hold a huge promise for the Indian economy, and we simply cannot do without this sector because they form part of your core sector industries. Coming to your earlier observation about Jindals, yes, it is true that we have deferred our plans for adding any more capacity. We're going to wait until such time that the market comes to the normal levels.
Okay. So one big story here has been Governor Rajan saying that, we are living in a make-believe world. And that seems to have sent out a ripple effect among Indian corporates and others who are now saying that the central banker might be helpless in terms of protecting business interests. What is your sense of this?
I think the RBI, of course, has been playing a very proactive role to help the economy. But I'm one of those, with due apologies to the RBI governor, who truly believes that we need to bring down our interest rates. The interest rates at the lending level to the industry today is still between 10 to 12%, and which means that anyone who is to make investment from private sector, the IRR, it should be at least about 16 to 17%. In the competitive world of today, I don't think there are many such projects which will give you a sustainable 16 to 17% IRR. If you look at America, for the last many years, they were holding their interest rates close to zero. That did help them to, once again bring life into their industry, into their infrastructure. And now today you can see the American economy is in a much better shape than it used to be earlier. I think we must draw a leaf out of the American experience. We must hold our interest rates, because today choosing between inflation and growth, I'll vote for the latter. We need to go for growth. And thankfully, thanks to the low price of the oil, that our inflation has also come down. The WPI is negative. And the CPI, which is very seasonal in character, that also is at a very controllable level. So there's no reason for us to keep the interest rates, at the level they are today. And I think one must understand the psychology of investors. The government is very concerned that the private sector is not coming forward to make more investments, but I think they need to sort of understand the private perspective a little more. And, I would really request to the RBI to once again consider the sectoral limits they have put, in terms of bank lending. They should be a little more liberal at this point of time to help the industry which is stressed with working capital and any other requirements of capital that they have to sustain their business. I'm absolutely sanguine that give another few months' time, they will stand firm on their feet.
Okay, so you think if the RBI cuts rates, Indian business will see an upturn at the end of the year?
Definitely.
Okay, the commodity mentioned, just a quick comment. You see commodities by the end of the year even lower or higher or at the same level?
You're talking in terms of the
commodity
business,
prices,
commodity prices. I think we reached the bottom already.
Okay.
If you look at the last couple of weeks, the prices have been at their bottom level. I think there's now time that they should start looking up and bring a much needed relief the industry deserves. Okay,
now back to India reforms, because many are saying that India should take this as a once in a lifetime opportunity. Commodity prices are low. There's a favorable environment where India is relatively better than the rest of the world. We are hearing at NDTV, Mr. Uppal, that the Congress is willing to make a compromise on GST, but the government itself might be reluctant to go ahead and press the trigger. Would you agree with that? What is your perception of A, if that will happen, and B, if it happens, what kind of impact it'll have on you?
Well, that I find it hard to believe that the present government will be opposed to introduction of GST. Historically, they have been very supportive. And all the BJP states, individually and collectively, have supported the GST. And we should not forget that the GST concept actually took shape during the Congress time. So I think both of them actually believe in the merits of GST. I think it's high time that both of them start talking to each other, then talking past each other. So I think it's a requirement of the national economy. There's so much wastefulness, so much duplication of effort, unproductive work which is being done because we don't have GST in place, and it's really going to enhance the productivity of the whole economy. So I think it's a agenda point in which there cannot be two different opinions. And I'm absolutely certain that Congress and BJP, once they sit down together, they can iron out any small differences and bring GST into life. Okay,
my final question, because we are sitting in Davos and I know you've been part of many interesting conversations here. What are you sensing, especially on all this move to automation? We are talking about robots and artificial intelligence, almost that the Make in China or Made in India story could very well be the Make in USA story in the years to come.
Well, there are one or two things that I realized after coming here. Everybody's talking here about the fourth industrial revolution and circular economy. Fourth industrial revolution is something which is actually very much in the interest of developed nations, because they have really been struggling to see how they can notch up a higher growth rate. But we got to remember, if you look at the last 15 years, a lot of growth on a global scale has come from the growth of China and other developing nations. We cannot write that off. We've got to make sure that their unfinished agenda, first gets complete, because demographically, the countries like China, India may make up for half of the humanity. So, although India might benefit from the fourth industrial revolution, because that talks about confluence of a lot of new technologies, the digital technology, the automation, robotics, nanotechnology. Yes, I think that the direction is inevitable. It's going to move there, but we just got to make sure that the developing nations, their growth agenda doesn't get compromised in this process. So the central banks of different countries really need to coordinate their action, so there's no flight of capital or no diversion of attention from the growth plan of the developing countries, because even the developed countries need that. So fourth industrial revolution, yes, but I think we need to tread very cautiously. We have to look at the social implications of rushing into the fourth industrial revolution, because it can have a huge social backlash if we don't address all the issues which could be in the backwash of it.
Okay, the time is now on lots of issues for India. Thanks so much, Ravi Uppal.
Thank you. A pleasure to talk to you. Thank you.